First of all, I would love to welcome you all on our first session, um, basically our art incubator. We're very glad that we will have a chance to work with you in the upcoming period together, or actually in the upcoming year. And we really hope as well with the rest of the partners, mentors, and fund to help you scale your career. We're going to jump directly to the first session. I will not be introducing myself specifically. However, I would like to say two things. So the first thing is that tomorrow during the day, maybe around the noon, you will be receiving the recording of this session. So you will be able to work on the other extra materials which we have prepared for you. And at the same time, in case you're not able to make any of the sessions, please always let us know so we are able to basically share with you the recording and we will not be waiting for you in that case. So, however, I would like to give my word to our mentor, the first mentor and the first company, which is going to give the seminar. And yeah, Valentin, it's your time. So feel free to start.
Hello, nice to see you all. I'm going to start initially here by sharing my screen so that you can see the presentation. Just a moment. So we'll be talking about applying to international calls, the essentials. Before we begin, before I introduce myself, just as you have already done, please do mute your speaker unless you're speaking. I see we don't have too many participants. I don't know how many do we have here. Let's have a look.
They're still coming. They're slowly joining.
Okay.
So feel free to just start.
And about how many people do we have, just so we know how?
Yeah, today there should be 15 people joining. So I think that
Okay,
we're waiting
perfect.
for three more, but let's just start.
Wonderful. Just in terms of participation, it will be good to know. I'm someone who greatly advocates for participation. So if you are willing to share, we would be really grateful for that. So again, my name is Valentine Shpihalik. I am the founder and director of Art Connect Society. And the reason that I'm talking to you about applications today is because I have reviewed hundreds of statements, applications for group and solo shows, for podcasts, and publication, as well as art prizes within Art Connect Society and with other organizations as well, as either a co-organizer or, in different roles, really. So I can tell you a little bit about what we're going to be working with today. So we're going to dig into the who am I, the who are you, why does my work matter, what's my vision, what opportunities support my vision, and hopefully increasing your chance for success in terms of your application and your footprint in the world. So before we start, I'd like to get to know you a little bit so that we are kind of in this together as we should be. So please, if you could, in the chat, if you could please drop in there your name, your location, and two goals for your art career. So we know kind of what we're working with today and what our interests are. So please, I'll give you a moment and you can just drop those right into the chat. Great. So you can continue that. I will just go ahead and move ahead here. Why is it important to know who you are? That seems like a pretty broad question, but also, why am I asking you this? Well, it's really important to have a vibe, so to speak, right? A way of being in the world. We all have them, but are you able to articulate that? Are you able to share in a way that is succinct, that is clear? One thing that I did forget to ask is I don't know how everyone's level of English is. So I hope if I speak too fast, if you have a question, please, the chat is there. Please do use it. I'm pretty receptive to it. And hopefully, Victoria, you can draw my attention to anything that you see. If there's anything, please chime in and just let me know. But I've brought this example to you today. So the reason I've chosen Mariana Jimenez Edwards, she is a good friend of mine, but also she has a very distinctive style. If you read the small text, I'll give you just a moment. I'll be quiet for a moment and let you read that and digest it. So if you have a look here at Mariana's work, in the photo, you see a photo of her sitting in her studio. And behind her in the upper right, I've actually placed that there. That is one of her artworks that is called Connected Wisdom. And you see, it almost looks like it belongs in her studio, but it's not actually there. It's one of her pieces. But I wanted to show you that it is very clear. So in the language that she uses to talk about her work, in her visuals, how she expresses herself through her clothing in this photo, through the items in her studio, you really get a very clear picture. And the writing really supports that. So her images and writings are really, really connected and clear. Someone looking at that has a really neat way, at least a preliminary way, to, at a first glance, have an idea about who she is. So it's just an example for you. Now the question really is, who are you? Why is your work important, and where do you see it living in the world? I know some of you kind of touched on this in the initial question that you shared, but where do you see your work living? Why is it important to you? I want you to please, if you could, drop that in the chat as well. And that's something that you will be getting a little organizer to help you to kind of just mark it down. You don't need to use this, but Victoria will send it to you tomorrow. It's just the questions which you will be working towards in order to clarify your vision if you haven't already. So the initial question is, who are you and why is your work important? What are you making? Where do you see that work living? Is it, for example, this installation in the photo that I've chosen for this slide? This installation is actually about domestic violence. So it's not something which you would put in, well, let's talk about where you would put it, right? You would put it in a space where women might be, because this is a very women-driven project. You would put it into a place where people are who would be interested, who would be connected with your work. So the same goes for whatever you're making. And those are the calls we should be seeking, right? So where do you see the work living is important, whether it's museums, whether it's galleries, whether it's a specific type of cafe where people, everyday people are interacting with your work. That's something which is really important for us to identify. So let's see if anybody was able to drop that into the chat here. Let's see, Victoria. Yeah. Museums. So you'll need to spend quite a lot of time, if you haven't already, in thinking about who you are and why the work is important. Why is the museum interested in what you're creating? Why is it important? It's a question that we must be able to answer for ourselves. If we know why it's important, then we are able to convey that. Until we know, we are not able to express it. So you can come back to this. Definitely write it down for yourself if you don't have it noted already. When we think about opportunities, before you apply, you need to know who you are so that when you look for opportunities, you can see about the call if it will connect with you. So what's the call? Who are the curators and why do you want it? The key questions are, why go for this specific opportunity? What is it? Are you just looking to fill your resume? And which is a totally valid point as well. Maybe you need a few points on your resume. Maybe you need to get in anywhere. It doesn't matter what it is. Maybe you're at the point in your career where you are seeking a museum. Maybe you are seeking a more like a hospital space or a more community-oriented space? These are all questions for you in terms of once you know who you know where your work should be living in the world, right? Why go for this specific opportunity? This is a question for you. What is your criteria in seeking an opportunity? What's important for you? I would ask you to please go ahead and just shout out anything in the chat there. You can also unmute yourself if you like and just share why go for a specific opportunity. What is it that you're looking for? Would anyone feel brave to unmute themselves and share? Because we would love to hear from you. Mhm. So that one, the time to concentrate and space to develop work sounds like a residency, probably. So you're looking for a specific type of residency. Where should that residency be located? How much time would you like to be at that residency? These are all questions that we should be asking ourselves. It's easy to just look for anything, but what is going to serve us and our goals the best? So thinking back to the first slide, when you were thinking about your goals, what is your goal and what specific opportunity is going to allow you to further that goal? No one would like to share? Yeah,
Maybe
Jason?
I can just chime in a little bit on. I like that question quite a lot. Like, why go for a specific opportunity? I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and we kind of landed on this topic about opportunities are abundant, and we tend to, as artists, have this mentality that we are always living on scarcity, that we just don't deserve good things, right? And we don't know where to start. So I actually realized that opportunity itself or finding opportunities itself is an art. And the art of finding opportunities tend to be given more attention to and even tend to be nurtured as a skill for every single artist or art organization. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll talk more about that on another slide here, but I think we'll get into it. So when we talk about that specific opportunity, thinking through those ties, why this opportunity? Why now? Why you? And of course, it might be a superficial answer. It might be because it's going to make me look good, because it's interesting for me, because I want a data point on my resume, which I already mentioned. These are still valid reasons at some moments or in some moments, but it might not be what you need moving forward. So just being mindful of the real true reason in terms of your goal, right? Always going back to your goal. What is your vision? What are you trying to achieve? And that will tell you much more clearly if the opportunity is something you should go for or not. As you said, there are so many opportunities, and it's so challenging to kind of wade through. There are a lot of pay to play opportunities. So you pay and you receive a service. That service might be, okay, you pay this particular organization and they're going to publish you. Or it's pay and maybe they'll publish you. So there are different even levels of a paid system and an unpaid system. There are people who want to write about you. So just being mindful of your real goal and motive will really help you to navigate which opportunities, will be a good fit and which ones maybe not, and maybe some in some moments and maybe not. So just being mindful of that. So if you find a call and you decide to apply, you think, okay, this one is one I'm really, really interested in. So it's going to come down to understanding the call. Do you really understand what's involved? Do you really understand what they're looking for, right? Have you read through everything carefully? Who are the partners? Who are the curators? And who are the potential byproducts? And this one is, for me, very fascinating and interesting because as someone who's been on the other side of this, when I'm looking for people, I might come across someone who's an interesting fit for an additional project. Okay, yes, we like them for this project, but actually, I would like to use them in something else. So then it comes down to, are they someone who's easy to work with, right? Are they someone who I see some connection or maybe a greater purpose? Maybe I have 3 people who are quite interesting in this way. All right, let's partner them with that. Are the curators or people who are reviewing your application interested in you purely for that purpose? Is it just to publish you in this edition and that's it? Or are they looking for something more? So those are good questions as well to kind of look through what is the motivation of people who are receiving your application. What are their interests? Are they curators, also painters if you're a painter? Are they also photographers if you're a photographer? That doesn't mean necessarily that someone who is matching you is going to pick you because they have a similar connection, but it's an interesting point to think through. What might they be interested in? In some cases, it might be super relevant, in some case irrelevant, but it's important to really look and choose. And again, think through if that makes sense. Reading the instructions and following them very, very carefully. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide because it requires a lot of detail. But this idea, and actually, Jason, you mentioned this about the numbers game. Some people think, okay, if I throw out 100 applications, I will get something, right? It's just a question of putting in the work and whatever it is, it doesn't matter. 100 applications is going to yield a result. Is that result serving you? That's a question for you. It depends again on that motivation that you have. What are you looking for? What does the opportunity need to bring to you? Yeah, it's really a big question about the numbers game because sometimes we really just need that connection, and it's a first step. Depending on where you are and what you've built thus far, it might be really helpful and it might not. So just ask yourself those questions as you are thinking about what to apply to. So here comes the application. I've come to a point, I know that it's for me. I feel I'm a good fit. It makes a lot of sense. We're connected. I see my work living in that space. It makes sense. This museum is interested in me. I'm going to make them interested in me. I know that we have a connection there. How do I now prepare my package? Well, you need to label all your images. And again, this is coming back to like wanting to work and make yourself an easy person to work with. I have had and received so many applications where people do not label their files, and I want to work with them and I want to use their work for another project, but I just can't find it. I literally can't find their work because they haven't labeled it. And sometimes I'm really good, and I'll give you an example. I have someone who I've become friends with over the year who I know that she always labeled her images IBA something. And it was just a random annotation. It wasn't significant to her. But I worked with her for such a long time that I already knew that about her. That is going to be extremely rare. Most people will never look twice for your work. If they don't find it, that's okay. She's out. If you don't make it simple and clear for people to work with you, they just won't. Maybe they want to, but maybe it's too complicated and they don't have time, right? We don't have time for that. So name always on everything, whether it's your statement, whether it's a supporting document that you upload, your images, anything should have your first and last name, size, year, medium, at minimum, right? These are just the bare minimums. If you want to work with a museum and they don't know the scale of your work, if you didn't add the size, how do they know that it's a fit for them? They're looking for a larger scale piece. Okay, well, they don't know what it is. They can't tell, right? So be sure that this is very, very clear. Yeah. Can you think of any other reasons why this would be important? You can feel free to chime in. because there are many. Blanca, can you think of any? Put you on the spot.
Thanks for that. Sorry, no, I can't. Yeah, nothing comes to mind at the moment.
But I think like the key one definitely, yes, Nella. Thanks, Blanca. I'm sorry for putting you on the
I
spot.
just wanted to ask you maybe about the size, or maybe you will talk about it later, but I wanted to ask you about something happens if it will be too big, the file, or too small, or something like what about the quality? Because this is what I'm like finding most difficult, that I wanted to have it in a good quality, but at the same time, it's really long to download it and stuff.
Usually, this is a really great question, Nella. Usually, this is very clear in the application. So there will be very clear instructions about what they want. High quality 72 or 300 DPI, it will almost always be extremely clear. If you don't know, go back and check the instructions, because 9 times out of 10, it's going to be there because they're going to be quite clear about it. If they say high quality, and there's really nothing, then I would go with the highest quality, 300 DPI. I would go with the file which you have as the base highest quality. Of course, if they don't want that, they will likely write it there. They will put 72. It's really important because, again, imagine that they have your work, you have applied, they selected you, but now they want to make the catalog. And now they're going to ask you again for another image of your work. That's going to be an issue, right? That's going to waste a lot of their time. People don't want that. If it's difficult to work with you, people will avoid it, right? Make it as easy as possible. And the directions, I assure you that really and truly, 9 times out of 10, it is very clearly indicated somewhere in the application. So go back and just double check that it's not listed there. And you just made me think of something. I'm trying to think of what it was about the file sizes. It'll come back to me. But it is really important to really follow those directions to a T, because it's usually all written there. So if you go back, double check, you'll be on a good track. Yeah. So kind of as an overview, you will be receiving this checklist here. And you can see it there, actually. Does the call support your vision? Is it a good fit for your unique value? And that comes back to who you are and how you live in the world, right? What is your mission? What are you trying to express? And how does that fit with the context to which you're applying? If it's a residency, well, because it's going to allow you that time and space. Why this residency? Why this space? How does it align with your vision? It's really important to tailor that. So labeling the files, high quality images, sizes, and then the next one is the one I'm kind of talking about. Tailor your statement. What that means is for every opportunity, you're going to have your artist statement. I assume you all have it already. If not, I'm sure you're going to be working on that. But the artist statement for every single application that you fill out could be tweaked ever so slightly. It doesn't mean you have to rewrite an entire text every time you're applying to something, but it does mean that if you really are a good fit for an opportunity, it should be clear. So making those tiny micro adjustments to your statement could make the difference in drawing that link, in kind of drawing the line between the two items, between you and the opportunity. So take that time, because that's showing that it is clear, not just for you, but for them, right? To make that tiny connection. And again, it doesn't mean rewriting every time. You are who you are, and it should be clear from your statement. But are there sometimes tiny little tweaks that could be made? I think that there are, and there could be. So rereading the instructions If you're not sure what they're really looking for, and if you really double check the instructions and you cannot find it, contact them, right? It's absolutely better to make that connection. And I think it's been quite proven that if you do make that connection, you will be more successful in, the more contact you have with them, the more successful, as long as those contacts are professional. That you haven't read the instructions, and that you're using them or wasting their time, but that you're really asking, look, I've searched through and I do not find this, and I'm really interested, and I want to make sure that I'm giving you what you need. That's appreciated. That's valued, right? Clear message. So again, in the case of that, I don't know if it was third slide or so, but with Mariana Edwards, having a really clear package or presentation about who you are helps to decide, is that opportunity the right fit for me or not? It could also, of course, it's a slippery slope. It could go either way. It could feel for you that you are creating too small of a circle, and therefore you're not able to reach opportunities that you might otherwise like to. So just being mindful of how niche it should be, but bearing in mind who you are really and truly, right? Being honest with yourself, because if the opportunity isn't a good fit, you don't want it anyway. It's not furthering you towards your goals. So that's being, what Jason said, being picky a little bit about that abundance, because there are so many opportunities out there. Which ones are the right ones for you? Where are we? We talked about the message. And I know that in this group in particular, we do have a lot of maybe non-native speakers, native English speakers, sorry. So in that case, when you think about, I understand that it can feel very frightening, probably. I'm bilingual, and I'm living in a country which is not one of my first two, my two main languages. It's a third language, which I'm not as proficient in here in the Czech Republic. So for me, I understand that barrier, but I have no fear. I apply, I write in broken Czech if I have to, I speak in broken Czech. You must just be clear as possible, right? So the clarity is an important factor. Your grasp of English is not the primary concern, but do you have access to a spell checker? Definitely. Can you check the spelling of a document with AI tools or any other way? Absolutely. So the basics of editing for spelling, grammar, that is expected. And grammar is maybe not so essential, but even grammar, you can put your text into an AI tool and say, correct only my grammar, right? That's a useful tool because you maintain your voice, you stay fully true to what you've written. It does not have to be perfect, but it's a good tiny tweak that you can make to make it make sense for the reader, and it improves clarity, right? If you don't take care about those little details, it does come off as you don't care, because everyone can access a spell checker, right? Everyone can see the underline when the sentence is coming up incorrect. Everyone can see those little tiny pieces of neglect, so to speak, right? That you've seen it and you kind of said, meh, it's fine. And for some people, it won't matter at all. But most, I think, a basic level, it's helpful. Is the relationship mutual? So when you come to a call, is it going to be benefiting you and them, right? You want them to choose you, but you also want to choose them. It has to make sense from both sides. And the expectations that you've seen in the directions or instructions, those expectations are set. So the timelines, am I able to meet them? Am I able to manage my time? Is this opportunity making sense for me in that sense? So, right? So the expectations of when some work needs to be delivered or how it needs to be delivered. Do I have enough time and space to make that happen? So this is just a really kind of quick overview about applying to calls. There are so many in-depth aspects to every single part. When we talk about analyzing the curators and the call itself, that can be an entire session in and of itself because it's so complicated depending again on your goal. But the very first thing that I suggest you spend a lot of time on, if you haven't already, is understanding yourself and that key question of what is the work I'm making? How do I want it to live in the world? And how does it bring a unique value, right? What is my unique value? My work. Where does it live? And once you have that vision really clear, I think the opportunities that you're seeking will be much more directed, right? In the case of Mariana, in that one of the initial slides, she is working with embassies. She's working with consulate. She's working with museums. She's also working with historical societies. It becomes really, and even in Mexican restaurants, she
Maybe if you have some advice as to parlaying in these two different kinds of markets, I guess that would be quite helpful for me. Yeah. Thank you.
yeah.
Just a quick note, we have less than 1 minute left, so
Is it not possible the call will end or?
yes, it will end. It's scheduled. Yes.
That's unfortunate. Yeah, I would love to answer any additional questions that you might have. This is my contact information. You will also have that. You can definitely reach out and connect with me. I could answer, but with less than a minute, I don't know how to get my thought out so quickly. So yes, please, you could, my personal, or I should say my personal, as in not my community, is Bella Valentina Art. You can find me there. You can connect with me also directly through our community.